the voice of Iowa. Newsradio 1040 WHO.
11:35 on a big show clock, being brought to you right now by the Iowa Agriculture Water Alliance. Clean water in Iowa starts here. No matter where you're at. In fact, clean water in Iowa starts with you. You bet it does. And we're going to get back out on the road here, not too distant future, and talk about some of these projects that are going on right here in the state of Iowa. These clean water projects. In fact, caught up with Jacob Hansacker the other day, and he was putting in some control boxes, talking about those, how they can control water flow and how you can hold water at that field level, or you can divert it through things like saturated buffers. I'll tell you what, state-of-the-art is growing, and we're going to find out more about some of these projects. Again, the Iowa Ag Water Alliance bringing you this update on the big show. Start off to look at the markets right now. Brian Hoops, Midwest Market Solutions, on the telephone line with us right now. Brian, kind of a quiet day in the soybean market, quiet day in the corn market as well. It seems like we're just kind of waiting for another estimate to come out to drive this market either up or down on the size of the crop. What are you thinking about in corn and beans right now?
Yeah, it has been very quiet, Bob. Corn market has had a nice rally. I think, the Pro Farmer Tour that was concluded last week, you had that news contradicting a little bit what the USDA had to say back in the August supply and demand report. That was the day that we put our lows in on August the 12th. And since that time, the corn market has kind of steadily rallied. The Pro Farmer Tour uncovered record-type yields, especially in the western corn belt, but not as high as what the USDA had to say. And so I think a lot of people are hoping that is going to be accurate. The USDA overestimated yield potential for this year's crop, and those yields will start to come down this fall. In fact, we may start to see some yields trickling lower in subsequent supply-demand reports, and we start to get some actual harvest data. So that's given us a little bit of a bounce in the corn market, but it's probably short-lived. How high are you going to rally off of this news? Well, you've done 20 cents. That may be as much as we're going to be able to rally. We've rallied into resistance, failed at about 416 yesterday, and now we've turned back lower since that price. So we may be kind of getting ready for some more harvest activity, and certainly basis levels are going to be stretched, especially in the western corn belt where crops are going to be very large. We expect basis is going to widen out for a period of time, so storage is going to be at a premium. Producers that have bought their own storage or paid for their own storage, I think, will be rewarded this year on basis improvement and ability to sell the carry that's available in the marketplace. And, the soybean market has had a real big rally because yields on that USDA report, planted acreage and yields not as high as some had expected. So, we went from trading near the lows in the early part of August to now trading near the highs for the entire growing season. You go back to even as recently as June 20th, 1074 was a high that we had posted back that time frame, and just 2 days ago we were as high as 1062 within a 12-cent range of that. So soybeans, I think, are kind of right now the crop that producers are willing to sell off of the combines, make space for corn storage, and there'll probably be a lot of corn stored at harvest, hoping that prices do improve if the USDA did overestimate this year's crop.
Well, I'll tell you, this would be a great time to have an empty grain bin. You bet it would be. I want to ask you, we saw some of that corn come out of the Farm Progress Show site at 18%, which, you're talking about some fairly dry corn. You're talking about selling beans off the combine. Think there might be any value in selling corn to off the combine as well?
Probably to a lesser extent than soybeans, just because of the price. But yeah, right off the combine, if you're kind of early and the market needs to replenish the pipelines if you're one of the first ones in line this year, there's probably going to be some value there. Now, as the market gets a little bit more flooded with some crop, it's going to be harder and harder to say selling right at harvest, and when there's long lines of trucks wanting to unload, that's going to be a very good very good marketing strategy. It's probably going to be a difficult one to make work this year.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'll tell you what, grain cart drivers are hard enough to find, let alone trying to find someone who can go sit for a few hours waiting to unload some corn at the elevator. Well, we're going to let you go for a little. Oh, I wanted to ask you about cattle here, Brian, before we got too far down the line. Looks like live cattle are rallying again yet today.
They certainly are. It seems like every day that's what they do. They had a break yesterday morning and narrowed those losses by the end of the session. I think feeder cattle are all $10 off of yesterday's lows, and that used to be a pretty large range for a month or 6 months even, let alone 2 days. Midday cutouts are sharply higher once again. Choice is up 648, Select is up 684, feeder cattle index is higher, and Oklahoma City auction, red hot once again. Calves were up $8 to $20, feeders are up 4 to 10. It seems like the demand has not slowed for the cash markets, and until that cash starts to break, I don't know that there's a top in this market until we find one in the cash markets.
Well, America certainly has a taste for beef, and hopefully that consumer demand will stay with us. Hey, if folks want to talk with you, Brian, about markets, how can they do so?
You can reach me directly, number 417-501-5132.
5132. Hey, Brian, we'll give you a call here about an hour and 10 minutes, talk more markets. Thanks for talking to us a little bit. You bet. Brian Hoops, Midwest Markets.
Food, fuel, and fun. We speak farm. This is The Big Show.
Hey, coming up on 12:55 here on The Big Show clock, Brian Hoops on the telephone line with us, Midwest Market Solutions. And, Brian, let's zero in on this cattle market because it is still moving higher. And I had a note from one of the sale barns here. They set some new price records at their last sale on fat cattle, well, about all weights, actually, of cattle coming through the sale barn. What's going on in the cattle market? Are we near a top yet?
That's what everybody wants to know, and they've been asking that for seemingly $20 in live cattle and $50 in the feeders. It's everybody wants to know where that top is coming, and really the answer is nobody knows for sure. But when the cash peaks out and starts to trade lower, that's when the futures market will concede and roll over as well. And we have Labor Day on Monday, so a lot of times you'll see a lot of demand push the markets higher, like we've seen here recently. Really, cutouts really surging because of that Labor Day buying demand, which will start to come to a slow here pretty soon, and that could hurt the cutouts. In turn, it may hurt the cash markets. Cutouts were sharply higher at noon, I should say. They were well over $6.50 in both the choice and the select. So there's still that demand there, and that means the cash is probably going to be stronger again this week. So we'll see. If the cash market starts to back off, but we talked in the first segment, Oklahoma City auction this week, feeders are up $4 to $10, and calves are up $8 to $20. So there's a lot of demand for those feeder steers and those calves yet.
You mentioned boxes. They're higher at midday. They're sharply higher. Almost $4.15 for choice, and we're getting close to $400 on select boxes.
Yeah, we are. It's a record level. So yeah, record levels that we're at. And so, what price level does the consumer start to back off? Well, I don't know that we've seen that yet, but the consumers are seemingly willing to spend a lot of money on a lot of different things. Uber Eats has reported record profits or record deliveries of food items to consumers. So they're not backing away and trying to save money on any type of food products yet. I guess they're still going to buy beef and steaks and maybe some pork and chicken down the line. But the consumer does like their beef. They like steaks, and they're going to continue to buy it.
About 30 seconds left here, Brian. A quick update, corn, soybeans. What do you expect to see these December corn, November beans doing here the next few weeks?
Yeah, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to get a little bit of early harvest activity, and I think eventually it's going to start weighing on the markets in here. When the cash basis starts to weaken, that'll pull the futures markets down, and that could take a couple of weeks, but I think we will see prices turn lower into early stages of harvest before we can start talking about some sort of a post-harvest rebound or post-harvest rally.
Brian Hoops with us, wrapping up the day's marketing side. Hey, Brian, how can folks get a hold of you if they want to talk markets?
Yeah, you can always check us out online at MidwestMarketSolutions.com. We have 5 offices around the Midwest, or you can give me a call directly. It's 417-501-5132.
Midwest Market Solutions. Thanks, Brian. Brian Hoops joining us.